Hello, health seekers. Bang on 7 o'clock in the evening here on a lovely, warm summer's evening in Britain. That's what I wish I'd say, but actually it's just grey. And with me is, as seen on TV, the UK's top nutritionist, Richard Smith. Hi, Richard.
Hello. How are you doing? You okay? All good?
Yeah,
Bob, this
yeah. Well,
awful
go on.
weather.
Sorry, you were asking me a question. Go on.
Except for this awful weather.
Yeah, it's a bit grey. Look at this. Whoa. Here's my book.
Brilliant.
So, that changed all the light in there. So if you like paperbacks, you can get it in paperback, and also you can get it as an ebook. But this last 2 weeks, I've finished all the books I've been writing. So I had 5 on the go, and I decided to get them all finished and published. So if you're interested in that, there'll be a link in the description. And the one I'm most excited about is the bodybuilding one. I'm going to be doing Rich soon. Anyway, Richard, that's my news. I was dying to show you that.
Super impressed.
Right, we got questions. Should we go straight to the questions?
Let's get into them. Fire away.
Okay. I don't know who this is. The Kreggers. I've been carnivore for 8 months. I have Crohn's disease and I've lost a lot of weight. I only weighed 13 stone before carnivore. I'm now 10 stone. 1,200 grams, which isn't. Oh, hang on. I've got the next bit here. Of mince a day and a ribeye. Should I further increase my intake? I feel like it's already a lot. Good question. I think this might be someone called Greg, actually, who's on our Mighty Networks.
Fantastic. So look, it's, 120, what's that, 1,200 grams. That's over a K of beef or meat.
Yep.
That's quite a substantial amount. I wouldn't be overly concerned when it comes to weight. A lot of people that I work with suffer with mental issues in regards to losing too much weight, which seems alien to many of us because we come into this lifestyle in order to lose weight. But you'd be surprised at how many people don't want to lose too much. They fear that they're going to be looking too skinny, too lean, too ill, so on and so forth. But the body will find its natural level of homeostasis. When it finds a level that it's happy with, that loss will slow down and you will eventually gain a little bit of weight back. It's difficult given the society and things that we fear this excess weight loss, but we shouldn't fear it. It's when I lost my weight initially, I looked, dare I say, like a heroin addict. And everybody said to me that I looked incredibly unwell. But I felt the best that I'd ever felt in my entire life. Now, despite every doctor and family member telling me that eating red meat was bad for me, eating the volume of red meat that I was consuming was bad for me. What about all the salt I was consuming, all the saturated fat? What about cholesterol, so on and so forth? I listened to my body. I went against everything that everybody else was telling me because I felt absolutely incredible. I did gain some weight after, a considerable amount. Obviously, I went on to become a professional bodybuilder, but I wasn't concerned. Yes, I looked lean and ripped and, unhealthy to many because I had these cheekbones that were predominating. I looked like Skeletor from He-Man. But I wasn't concerned. So look, Greg, what I would bounce back at is, how are you feeling? How is your energy? How is your mental clarity? If you feel fantastic, then what's the problem? And I always come back to eating to satiety. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, listen to your body. However, there is an adaptation period. There is a phase in which your body needs to adapt into eating this way. But that's what I would bounce back is how are you feeling?
Yeah, and I'm going to echo that because there's no right amount to eat and there's no right weight for you to be, as in numbers. It's what suits you as a person. So I was talking to somebody yesterday about the fact that my BMI is pretty much always over 25. So it's not in the ideal weight, allegedly, but it's between 25 and 30. If you actually looked at mortality rates, by the way, the best band to be in is between 25 and 30. That's absolutely bang on, by the way, in case you want to look that up. Who lives the longest? At what BMI do you live the longest? And it's 25 to 30. That doesn't mean anything, by the way. It's all arbitrary because you could be between 25 and 30 and fit and have muscle and good bone density and work out and eat well, or you could be someone that does the complete reverse of that and has pizza and Coke and seed oils and doesn't work out. So it is very individual, which is what Rich said. Sorry to sort of repeat it, but I just wanted to say it a slightly different way, because we've had a few questions on our Mighty Networks about this type of thing. How much should I be eating? Well, if you, the question said, I've been carnivore 8 months and I've got Crohn's and I've lost a lot of weight. I only weighed 13 stone before carnivore. Now I'm 10 stone. You see, I think there would be a lot of water retention gone, a lot of subcutaneous fat, but a big thing might be your visceral fat has gone down. You know, so what do you look like? And if you feel great and you look better and you've got more energy, but you still want to weigh a bit more, and I get that. If you want a bit more muscle, a bit more bone, or you want to feel a bit more solid, then yeah, just eat a bit more, and I think you should be all right. Okay, next question we have is from Stephen, not me, or Stefan. Sorry, said your name wrong. Hi guys, big fan. Good. If someone wants to eat berries, at what time would you recommend to take them? Before, during, or after, or between meals, when it comes to easier digestion, blood sugar rises, etc. Firstly, what I would do is I would eat the berries in your region when they are abundant naturally. And then for the rest of the time, I wouldn't eat them at all. Okay. So if you're looking to look after the planet, which is what we're really big on in carnivore, then you eat seasonally. You know, what is up the road? It doesn't have to come across from Spain on a plane or Peru or somewhere like that. So yeah, if berries are good wherever you live. So let's say I live, you know, I do live in the UK, don't have to say it. And I can go out and there's blackberries, which there were, you know, in the summer months. I took a video, I did it on YouTube. So look, there's some blackberries on a bush there. Now, if I was a hunter-gatherer, I would eat those. I would. I tell you what, if I went out now, I would not find a berry, and I would not have found one in January. I would not have found one in February. Certainly not in December, certainly not in November. So sorry if that sounds a bit picky, but that would be my first answer, to eat seasonally where you are from. So you can get used to sort of like something up the road that hopefully is, you know, not covered in glyphosate and all that sort of stuff. And it's not been on a plane. It's not been sprayed with chemicals. It's not been sitting in a controlled environment. Right. Now, I'm going to leave the rest for Rich, because he doesn't have to do the political rant. I've just done it. But if you are going to have them, when is the best time? Is it before, during, after, or between meals when it comes to easier digestion and blood sugar rises?
My first question to that would be, what is the purpose of consuming the berries? Now, an athlete may want to consume the berries in order to fill glycogen stores for a workout or to replenish glycogen after. So, you know, it would depend. If you just want it for the sake of wanting something sweet, you know, I'd say probably best to maybe do it after. But if you're eating that little berry, I don't think it's really going to make much difference. But what I would say to this is, why would you want to? And I know that's a silly question, but that's just given me the perfect segue into a question that a friend of mine asked me this week, who is a vegan. He does the whole fruit smoothies, blending of lots and lots of fruit, and he was asking me about how toxic fruit really is. So if you don't mind, if I've got 2 minutes, Steve, I can segue into something really quickly that is probably going to pee a lot of people off, but I think it's quite important.
Yeah, go on then.
So one of the things that we are told that fruit is highly nutrient dense in vitamins and minerals, and we've shown previous, you know, it's just not the case. But in the case of berries, they include a compound called anthocyanin, which is a toxin. They also contain amygdalin, the same thing that apples contain in regards to the seeds, and many other fruits contain a compound called linamarin and amygdalin, which are cyanogenic glucosides. Now, they turn into hydrocyanic acid, which breaks down into cyanide, which is as lethal as it sounds. Now, if we look at, in fact, let me Can I share my screen, Steve?
Yes, put it in the backstage, and I'll bring it forward.
Brilliant.
Just for people that want to know. Someone was surprised last week that we pay to do these sort of things. To do StreamYard, which is supplying the live stream, costs a fair bit of money to do it. Just for those that are interested, because we're always moaning about putting all this time in, but it's worth it because we can do things like this. I don't know if you can zoom that up a little bit, Rich, because if we're going to share screen, we might as well be able to sort of read it. That's great. That's great.
So the reason I put that in there is, so, typically what I get asked is, well, how toxic are these compounds? Now, as I just said, this cyanogenic glucosides, which turn into this hydrocyanic acid and break it into cyanide, is cyanide, that lethal compound. Now, to reach a lethal dose, what this paper and many others say, particularly from the National Institute of Health Toxicology Data Network, state that a lethal dose of hydrogen cyanide in man, and as you can see there, is 0.5 to 3.5 milligrams per kilogram, which isn't an awful lot. Now, this can be found in as little as 80 apple seeds, for example, meaning that we would only have to consume 8 to 10 apples with the seeds in order to be at risk of dying from cyanide toxicity. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. I don't eat the apple seeds because, you and I are, and the listeners are very clever. We're not stupid enough to eat apple seeds. But I used to cut these apples into quarters, and I used to put them into my blender to make this, these smoothies. And I would add maybe 2 apples 3 times a day. So I was consuming maybe,
Can I ask a question, Rich? Sorry to cut your flow off. And the other thing is, how quick does the body clear it? Because, it's not going to instantly get out of your system.
It doesn't, and it is accumulative. So it has been shown to cause issues hepatically within the body, and it is accumulative. So if you were doing these things every day, now this is really scary. But what that shows there is that a lethal dose is 0.5 to 3.5. Now, 0.5 is the lower end. But what this shows on the other screen there now is that when we consume these cyanide compounds, it forces the cells, and I'm going to read this, into anaerobic metabolism to produce ATP, resulting in a buildup of lactic acid. Now, to the astute listener who follows us every week, they will know that when we spoke about what causes cancer, it is mitochondrial dysfunction from the production of lactate, i.e. fermentation, because the cell is not able to perform this oxidative phosphorylation. Am I saying fruit causes cancer? I wouldn't dare to say such a thing, but I'll leave that one down to you. Maybe I'd say something different on the other channel. But look, if we look into this, that apple basically contains around 6.25 milligrams of this hydrocyanic acid or hydrogen cyanide. If I move on to, I've got a couple of things here. Let's go through them one by one. But my point to this is that if you are consuming a smoothie with 2 apples per day, 3 times a day, that could be 6 apples. And that is only just 2 apples short of potentially causing death. But what I wanted to look into is this compound found in other foods. Now, another big buzz at the moment is linseed. Now, as you can see there, linseed or flaxseed. And what this study shows is that the mean concentration would be 285 milligrams per kilogram, which basically means that linseeds or flax seeds, for example, contain around 30 milligrams per 100 grams of this cyanogenic glucoside. So that's quite scary. So I started to look into typical smoothies and how many flaxseed or how much flaxseed that we would put into this. So along with our apples, and we put in flaxseed, we got orange juice in there, and the seeds in oranges also contain this this amygdalin also. So we got the flaxseed and ginger, and a couple of these also contain this compound. So let's scroll down, and I'm going to show you the ingredients list there. 2 tablespoons of flaxseed. Now, 2 tablespoons of flaxseed, and I did put it on somewhere else, but I've lost it. 2 tablespoons of flaxseed would be the equivalent to 20 milligrams of this toxic compound, meaning if we put 2 tablespoons in each one of these smoothies, along with our 2 apples, that 20 milligrams becomes 60, with the lethal dose being as low as 35 milligrams per adult human being weighing 70 kg. Now, this is on the lower end. This is well on the lower end. And there was a study in this that I wanted to show you. Yeah, I'll find it another time. But it was going into how toxic these compounds are. Oh, there we are. So I mean, that shows there the 30 milligrams. But I'm going to unshare that there now. But there was a study that I want to show you in particular, which showed this toxic compound in things like cruciferous vegetables as well as fruits, and how low it is. But the scary thing to think about this is these people who are making these smoothies that are chucking apples with the seeds and oranges and flaxseed into these smoothies to be made. Now, the lethal dose, as I say, is 0.5 milligrams per kilogram, which means a young child of 3 years of age, for example, one of these smoothies could be enough to cause death. And with this smoothie, a juicing revolution kicking high through all of the media channels, lots of children are being introduced to these high levels of toxic compounds. My point to this is the fruit, despite being, and what our friend Paul Taladino says, is the part of the plant that wants to be eaten. And clearly, some of these fruits do not want to be eaten. And even melon contains some of these toxic compounds, which obviously I know he's known for eating considerable amounts of. But do not feed your kids these smoothies. If you were going to do these silly diets and you're going to juice and smoothie, all of these apples and these flax seeds and these oranges full of this toxic compound, please do not give it to your kids, because this is, and as we've just shown, and that is right at the bottom end. I'm not disputing that is right at the lower end. But we have seen document cases of low amounts such as this causing death in adult human beings. And while we're chatting a little bit later on, I'll see if I can find some of the studies that highlight that. But I thought that was a perfect segue in regards to the questions with the berries. And it brings me back to, why would you want to consume the berries? It's they're full of these toxic compounds. And this is just one toxic compound amongst many. So I'll just leave you, Stu, with that one.
Yeah, and I think that's, this is covered in my book, by the way, which, why would you go back to eating the way that you used to eat? Because that's what a lot of people think carnivore is. You get better and then you try and reintroduce the stuff that got you sick in the first place, which is crazy. Anyway, right. Emma, hello, just Em. I started eating meat without salting it and now noting a lessening of leg cramps, wondering if that's just correlation or could it be causation. I've also started doing fascia decompression. Well, yes, we don't know, do we? It could be causation, it could be correlation, could be coincidence, could be temperature changes, could be that you're now fully fat adapted. But to me, I would say it just indicates that you need less salt on your food. That's it. Because if you reduce the salt consumption and things improve, which we're really big for, being intuitive and listening to your body, I would say try not to sweat too much over the science of it and just enjoy the fact that you got less cramps. I remember when I was at the Steak and Butter Gang, Bella experimented ever such a lot with salt, and there was such a variation in the group between having lots of salt and no salt. So it's down to that trial and error and individual results. I'm not going to do interrupt Rich because he's dying to look at that study. So Kate has got evening. What's your view on supplementing with iodine? Now, this is a really interesting one, Kate, for a couple of reasons. I've had so many people talk to me about Ken Berry's conversation with Dr. David Brownstein, who really is actually one of the influencers behind us getting back into supplementing or making sure we've got enough iodine. I've done a free ebook which you can download, which is basically the transcript from that. So, sitting there taking notes is so difficult, so I thought I'd do that for everybody. My own personal view of iodine is pretty good. if you've got a thyroid that's having issues, or you feel like maybe your iodine levels are low for whatever reason, you might think that, you could just supplement. You could just take a couple of drops and see if it makes a difference. Now, yes, there is a patch test you can do where you put it on your skin and it marks it, and then you can see how long it takes before it evaporates that color. Or you could have a blood test. You can have an iodine clearance test. So what that does, because we're international, we've got people all over the place, I won't use units. I'll use a theoretical 100 units of iodine in a drink, and you drink that down, and your urine is then measured over different periods of time, normally 4 or 5 times over 24 hours. Now, if you've drunk 100 units of iodine and you excrete over 24 hours 100 units of iodine, you are not deficient. It's a really good test. They do this with creatinine as well. Creatinine clearance is a really good test. So you can actually get to that, or you could just, if you're feeling fatigued or you're having unexplained weight gain, unexplained weight loss, I mean, obviously you can go to your doctor about those things, but this is just for general information. If you wanted to experiment with a couple of drops of iodine and you started to feel better, which we see time and time again, that's great. There's a lot more to this. I do have a video about iodine, the Fat Club. We have a fantastic video. I put it in there as well about the full panel that you can get. And with the bloods, I've had many clients show me their antibodies going down, and supplementing has really helped. So I've had empirical data. I've had other people talking about it, like I say, Ken Berry and Dr. Brownstein. And we've also got the fact that people come on the live streams and tell us, oh, I tried that and it got better. So, lots of different things. So I know Rich really wants to show this study. So that's but you could also eat fish. That's the other thing. You don't have to get the iodine drops. You could eat fish. Sorry,
what
Rich,
sorry, Steve, just to add really quickly to that. I mean, if this person are living a ketogenic or low carb lifestyle, still consuming vegetables, that would be my first protocol, is take away the cruciferous veg. Cruciferous veg contains a toxic compound, believe it or not, called isothiocyanates, which cause goitrogens. But these isothiocyanates, they compete for absorption with iodine, and they leave a deficiency. So many who come away from eating cruciferous veg see a massive improvement in thyroid function. So that would be my first protocol. Any veg that you're consuming, take that out before thinking of maybe supplementation.
Okay, so just to go on the questions, we're trying to catch up with the questions always. If you want to jump them up, you can do the super chat. Rich has got his study he wants to show you, so let's do this.
Yeah, it's let's have a look here.
Sorry, I thought you had it ready.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So look, I mean, if I'm ready to go, so share when you're ready. Oh, there we are. It's up. Fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. So this is an outbreak of cyanide poisoning, and it's to do with linamarin, which is found in cassava. It's a root native to South America. And it says an outbreak suspected of food poisoning occurred in Uganda during September 2017. So this is, we're not talking hundreds of years ago. The outbreak was identified amongst attendees at a funeral and was traced back to the consumption of a meal of cassava flour prepared with hot water. The investigation identified 98 cases with 2 deaths. This is how deadly. So when I'm saying to you that these compounds are deadly, I'm not joking. These things kill people. If you overconsume too much of this compound, it can cause death. Do not create these smoothies from your fruits and vegetables. They are incredibly toxic. And this is just one. There's lots of these toxic compounds in lots of other foods and things. But this, to me, really knocked it home when I saw that. I mean, that's an incredible amount of cases that have suffered with this toxicity and leading to 2 cases of death. And this was only, 5 or 6 years ago. These compounds, they are truly deadly. This is why we are carnivore, and this is why we avoid consuming fruits and vegetables. You muted, Steve?
Yes, trying to give you the best sound possible for your study there. Stefan, Dr. Chafee said that after several months on keto, you'll have 4 times more mitochondria. They're 4 times more efficient, which means a factor of 16 compared to a standard American diet. Is it really that extreme? Yes, it is. Mitochondrial biogenesis is really improved, so is enzymatic activity. I could put a link to a study in the chat, which you could have a look at. I think I've got 4 or 5 references for that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not even talking carnivore; we're talking keto there. So 4 times more mitochondria for the lay people that aren't really into this and still watching and thinking, wow, it's a bit too sciencey for me tonight. They're the powerhouse of the cell, basically. They're the things that make the energy for you. So imagine that 4 times more of these little batteries in your cell and 4 times more efficient. So, imagine those big old chunky batteries you used to got in a radio, and now you've got these tiny little ones that power a phone for all day, unless it's an Apple one, obviously. So, it's incredible what you can do. And yes, the science is there, and the tissue-specific activity, the enzymes in there have actually been measured. So Dr. Chafee doesn't pluck things out of the air. There's always things that he can refer to. And I could put those studies in the chat, but I might put them in the description. Anyway, yes. Did you want to answer that as well, Rich? Sorry.
No, sounds good to me.
All right, okay. You can do the next one, and I'll put the references in the chat then. So here we go. Jacqueline Smith. How long does it cost? Well, I know she's corrected herself later. How long does it take to reverse insulin resistance?
This begins to happen literally overnight. If you were to test your insulin one day, reduce the seed oils or remove the seed oils, which cause insulin resistance at a higher rate than excess carbohydrate, by the way. This oxidized omega-6 linoleic acid causes more insulin resistance than carbohydrates do. So if you are to improve insulin resistance through one metric and you didn't want to reduce carbohydrate, removing seed oils from your diet is going to confer a better benefit. But quite literally, if you reduce carbohydrate and the seed oils now, by tomorrow, you are going to see a drop in insulin resistance. And you can technically reverse diabetes in as little as 2 weeks. And I have done this with clients of mine going on a blood glucose test. We have reversed diabetes and put that back into a non-diabetic range. Obviously, it takes 3 to 6 months to go through the correct channels in order to be not. I don't want to use the term cured because it's all to do with environment. And if you were to go back and eat the way that you were previously, if you were to go back and eat the way that led you to being sick in the first place, then you were going to become sick once again. And this is why this is a lifestyle. And this is why many people who adopt a lifestyle see all of these massive benefits, and then they plaster social media was saying how bad the diet is, because when they went back to eating normal, they became all sick again. And it's like, well, it was living that way in the first place that made you sick. Living this lifestyle improved it, made it better. What do you think's going to happen when you start putting this crap back in? And this is why this is a lifestyle, and it isn't a diet. But insulin resistance, if you begin your journey today, you're going to start to see improvements quite literally overnight. The more strict you are, the quicker that you're going to see that benefit.
That's excellent. I mean, with the insulin resistance, I mean, that is a construct. Don't forget, it's the cell protecting itself. That's the thing, from an overplus of energy. So, right, I've put a couple of studies in the chat, and maybe that's something we could instigate at some point, Rich, where we say our things and we put, like your studies and my studies I've just referenced, we could put those in the chat, or we can do something a little bit more tangible for people. So one of the things I'm thinking of doing is, because I've done a lot of timestamps and a lot of summaries for previous live streams, I'm thinking that I might do a few sort of PDFs, like a summary of every live stream we do with references. So what I've done in the chat, I've put my store, which has got PDFs on there and the books and things and group coaching. I'm going to put a section on there of live stream Q&As, downloadable PDFs. So everything we're saying can be verified, checked, and the thing is, the more we can do that, we've got the references coming out of our ears, and we're going to do a really great video about the difference between veganism and carnivore. sadly, Richard is just, running a massive empire at the moment. But when we do it, it will be full of references. And for those of you that feel you're not sure about carnivore, you'll have so much evidence. But, I can't stress enough, it's also real people. We've got both real people improving and also the science to back it up. So, right, let's go to the next things. A nice, simple question. Tam, hey boys, what cheese do you recommend? Well, you could look at fermented cheese, you could look at Gouda and Brie, and you can look at aged cheeses if you're okay with histamines. It's a trial and error and a taste thing as well. If you're eating cheese and you're having toilet issues and you're, a little bit bunged up down there, it might be the cheese causing that. If your body composition isn't going the right way, it could be cheese. So there's pluses and minuses, but the ones I recommend are the ones you like and don't affect you badly. And some people are lucky, they can eat all the cheeses and have no problems whatsoever. But for me, my go-to is Brie. I like Brie, like a bit of cheddar. And tonight, actually, I had mascarpone, but that's a bit sweet. But that was a bit of a treat. What about you, Rich?
Yeah, what I would say, I completely agree with everything you just said. What I would say is real cheese, and that may sound silly to some people, but Amanda recently picked up a red Leicester cheese, and I began to eat this, and it tasted like plastic. So I thought, what the hell is this? Now, this isn't red Leicester. So I looked at the ingredients, and there's about 10 different ingredients on there, and this is meant to be cheese. It was not red Leicester. It was red Leicester flavored cheese. They added all sorts of compound and colorings in order to change the color and to make it into a red Leicester. So not even cheese is safe in the supermarket anymore. So when you do pick up some cheese, make sure that it is 100% cheese. That would be my first thing. Obviously, again, as you say, go by taste. I like mature and mild. Cheese works really well for me. But what I would say, and this comes back to a question that I've had recently, somebody said to me that you said cheese is okay. What type of cheese is best? And by okay, I mean, if it's okay for you, there are still compounds within cheese which can cause intestinal permeability and cause an addictive tendency for people. Cheese can contain lactose and casein, and casein is highly addictive. Casein is a compound also that is known to cause intestinal permeability. It's a lot less likely. And generally, when you've healed your gut from consuming these toxic compounds, the lectins that are causing this intestinal permeability, then we can usually afford to put cheese in. Cheese works really well for me. It is addictive, and I do eat an awful lot of it, but the net gain is positive for me. It fills a hole if I'm looking for a snack. It gives me that energy. It doesn't give me any gastro distress problems, and my gut is intact. But should you suffer with extreme IBS or autoimmune issues, then maybe cheese is one to avoid. So it is circumstantial, and it does change from person to person. But yeah, real cheese. Lidl, for me, as far as a place to buy, sorry, Steve, is one of the best supermarkets. I don't like buying from supermarkets at all, especially when it comes to meats. But in my experience, the quality in Lidl in regards to meat and cheese is a lot better than most of the other supermarkets. But always try to support your local butcher in regards to meats, eggs, and cheese, because it's going to be way better quality when you get it locally sourced.
Absolutely. There's a question for both of us, but I think it's from Matthew's point of view. He's probably asking Rich here. So I'll do my little bit and then Rich can take over. What are the benefits for bodybuilders supplemented with Chromium? With the mechanism of action, is it blunt cortisol? So I'm putting my biochemistry hat on there and telling you why some people like it. But Rich probably has first-hand experience, having won a show. We've got a proper bodybuilder here with the history. Well, yeah, ex-bodybuilder, but you've done it. You've been there. I mean, I did the bodybuilding tournament. I didn't win, and I certainly didn't do it at the standard you were doing it. So, do you have any thoughts on that? Supplementing with Chromium?
I don't believe it confers much of a benefit. To be honest, it didn't for me. And look, you giggling at my confers a benefit. Yeah. Take another shot. Say another day. Look, it's all of these things. I had a conversation with a client of mine this week in regards to additional supplementation, and at what cost is the key. We look at all these added supplementations, and what are they actually adding as a percentage? If you were a professional bodybuilder, 1% will make all the difference. If you're not, then you've got to ask yourself, well, what's the point? It didn't seem to do an awful lot for me. And we must also recognize that the elicitation of cortisol is there for a reason. Yes, we look at it as, something that is negative, but this is when we suffer with chronically elevated levels of cortisol. It is still a natural process in the body that is there for a purpose. And I think if you were living a clean, healthy, carnivore, ketogenic lifestyle, then any activation of such a compound is done so as and when needed. I don't think it's worth supplementing with at the additional cost, to be honest.
I mean, I don't actually. But anyway, that was the question. So there you go. Matthew's got in with another question. So we're going to do that. What are the safest tanning beds to use? I heard some cause cancer. Is it true or based on a person having poor lifestyle factors? Do you have a view, Rich, on this?
Yeah, there's so many studies on this and they're so conflicting. And look, regardless of what I say, you will find a study to say the opposite. But within my experience, it's not the UVA that is causing any skin cancer. It is the consumption of, or the overconsumption of these oxidized omega-6s, these vegetable seed oils, which are high in this linoleic acid. They literally cook your body from inside out. Now, when I was younger, I was as white as paper, and I'm not exaggerated, and I will see if I can find a picture to prove this, but I was as white as paper. I would go out into the sun and I would burn. I'd go beetroot red and I would peel and become white again. I was your prime candidate for skin cancer. I don't burn anymore. I don't use sun cream. I believe that there's more known cancer-causing chemicals within sunscreen than there is from being exposed to the sun. And there are studies which actually show even groups of people who have suffered with skin cancer are less likely to die if they are exposed to more sun. And yet, you heard that me correctly. Even people with skin cancer have been proven to live longer if they still expose themselves to the UVA rays. UVA is incredibly important for the human body. It increases nitric oxide, which is an important vasodilator, and it is directly linked with longevity. We produce this naturally, being ketogenic, but UVA from the sun is what elicits this response, and we put it down to a vitamin D action, or an action of vitamin D, but it isn't. It is the UVA. I use sunbeds for it. So I do use sunbeds because I don't get an awful lot of of UVA, but I don't go on for prolonged periods of time. But what I find is, because I'm eating saturated fats, my body does not burn. My skin no longer burns the way that it does. And I would strongly suggest that skin cancer is caused by the overconsumption of this oxidized omega-6 from vegetable and seed oils. I think if you live a ketogenic carnivore-based lifestyle full of saturated fats, then you are far less prone to these skin conditions. But it works for me. It makes me feel good, and it elicits this increase in nitric oxide for me, which, as an athlete, I believe is incredibly important. But I'm a lover of sunbeds when used sensibly. And by that, I mean, a couple of times a week for short periods of time. Exposure in the sun, we want early in the morning when the sun, or late in the evening when the sun is lowest in the sky. This is when UVB rays are at its lowest, because it's the UVB that causes these detrimental issues. So sun is incredibly important. And again, we think it's for vitamin D, but being in the UK, we're not exposed to an awful lot of sun. Now, vitamin D is important for various other health reasons, not what we think in regards to what we've just said in regards to the UVA increase in vitamin D. The vitamin D is nothing more than a surrogate marker, but vitamin D is a hormone within the body that is incredibly useful. But we can get this from animal proteins. We are genetically predispositioned in the UK to produce vitamin D or synthesize vitamin D from animal proteins over the sun. Someone who lives closer to the equator would be the other way around. But my vitamin D levels are incredibly high, and I see very little sun, even before I was using sunbeds. But yeah, that's my two penneth.
Yeah, and I like your two penneth. I mean, one of the things I said last week was that most skin cancers appear on the body that isn't exposed to the sun. That's where most skin cancers are nothing to do with sun exposure. I think it's something like 75% of skin cancers are in areas that have never seen the sun. I wanted to just show you something, so I'm going to share screen now. Behind the scenes, this is not working very well. Let's have a look at it. Right, entire screen. I'm trying to get the window or a tab which has got this on, but I can't find it. Let's have a look. All right, well, we won't bother with that. I've actually got I think it might be that. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, it's not letting me. So my new computer, I need to get into this. Right. But basically it is from dermatologists, an article in the British Journal of Dermatology, which was entitled Melanoma Epidemic, A Midsummer's Night's Dream. And they actually said that there needs to be a re-evaluation of the role of UV radiation and recommendations for protecting from it. There needs to be a new direction for research into the cause of skin cancers, because the rise in reported malignant melanoma is due to diagnostic drift, whereby benign lesions are reported as stage 1 melanoma. And also, the distribution of melanomas does not correspond to areas of sun exposure. You would expect them on the face, the arms, the legs, more than anywhere else, but this is not true. So we don't just say these things, you know, and also experience. I since being carnivore, I can go out in the sun and I don't burn. I don't have the sun sensitivity. I don't use sun cream. And I used to be a bit sheepish about saying this because it's so ingrained in us that this is terrible advice. But just too many people feel better. Too many people feel better. I mean, you go out in the sun, you feel better. Well, the nitric oxide is obviously a big thing. The dilation of your blood vessels. The other thing is, while we're on nitric oxide, I mean, this is why deep breathing works, or mouth taping, because in your nose, you have the ability in your nasal passages to synthesize nitric oxide. So this is why deep breathing helps you. This, the science is there. It sounds a bit woo-woo. Oh, I'm going to mouth tape. I'm going to deep breathe through my nose. How's that going to help? Well, it is. It's going to give you nitric oxide. It's the same mechanism as things like Viagra, which incidentally, when you look at the mortality compared to statins, taking Viagra gives you more likelihood of living longer. And it's not because you're having more sex. It's because you've got more nitric oxide. Anyway, right. That's for another day. Harry. Hi, Harry. Richard. How would I go about fueling for the dragon ride in Wales? Especially given the difficult climbs. I think it would take me 10 hours to complete. I am keto and have been carnivore for a week. Welcome to the carnivore world. But excellent. So Richard, this is someone you know, I guess. And the dragon ride in Wales, for people that don't know, it's a very hilly. Oh, go on, Rich, you must know about this. So
yeah, no, it is. It's an incredibly tough ride. Look, it comes back to the old way of thinking that we need glycogen, to fuel these power rides, but we don't, and we've shown this time and time again. Even as if you are keto adapted, i.e., if you've been ketogenic for 6 or more months typically, and it can take longer, then you upregulate the body's ability to buffer hydrogen ions and send lactate to the liver and create glycogen at a higher rate than even a carb athlete. So we can produce glycogen within the muscle, should that even confer a benefit to power. As we've discussed previously with Professor Noakes, it isn't actually glycogen that is the definitive factor in regards to athletic performance. It's blood glucose. Again, that's probably a topic for another day. But look, if you are fueled by fat, fat is by far the more economical energy source. And by fat, I mean ketones. They're 400% more efficient at producing energy than glucose. Electrolytes, super important, making sure you're hydrated. I would take some food, making sure it's some fatty foods, maybe some cheese. Cheese always works well with me, or some keto bars that are high in MCT. Within my bottles, I would probably put C8 oil, along with some electrolytes. The C8 oil is going to convert into beta hydroxybutyrate in the liver and give you that energy boost. Personally, I would use a product that I make called Raspberry Bomb, which is exogenous ketones. They block the inflammation within the legs as well. So if you're on a long ride, what you'll find is you'll get fatigue in the legs, maybe around about mile, hour 5 or 6, depending on how much of an experienced rider you are. But the BHB, the beta hydroxybutyrate, will block inflammation. It blocks NLRP3 inflammasome and allows you to power through. You don't need sugar, you don't need carbs. So I would remove that from your thought process completely. Fat feed the night before. Fat feed with fats that are hard, typically at room temperature. In other words, don't fat feed with MCT oils because they don't store as well in the body, or omega-3s for that matter. As good as they are, they don't store. We want to fill the intracellular myolipids and give the body access to this readily available fat. So think of a fat feed for a couple of days leading up to the event over carb loading. And I think that's it. I mean, depending on how long you've been ketogenic also, I've known people who have completed Ironman events with no food whatsoever other than water and electrolytes. So if you are highly adapted, then it shouldn't be a problem. You have this unlimited source of energy supplied in body fat. As a ketogenic adapted athlete, we carry around 15 times more stored energy in the form of body fat compared to our counterpart, our equal self in glycogen. That's an awful lot. And it is as simple as that. Trust the process and just understand that your body has this unlimited energy source and you will continue to push through. Obviously, if you are doing a 10-hour ride and you're new to cycling, then I would suggest that you don't do it, that's a brutal ride. But, I'm guessing, Harry, that you've been training extensively for this event and I'm sure you understand what 10 hours of cycling entails. And it is as simple as that.
Excellent. Very quick one. Jacqueline is asking, Stephen, when do you have another group coaching? I do a group coaching on a Tuesday night. And if you look at the link I gave earlier, the details are there. Let's have a look at the next one. Cami. Hello, Cami. I've heard thyroid experts say that if you have thyroid antibodies in Hashimoto's, the iodine or iodine, depending where you come from, can sadly make the thyroid more visible to the antibodies, destroying it more. Well, thoughts? Yes. Now, actually, yes, lots and lots of bloods will show this. So if you have antibodies, you've got to understand the functional unit of the thyroid before anything else, because there's another question coming up which talks about selenium. So we can do a double whammy here, and I'll try and do it really quick because we're running out of time. I think Harry Sapanas said too much iodine can deplete selenium and vice versa. Do you know if this is true? Right, so let's do both these questions. So we're talking about antibodies when you take iodine, and can it deplete selenium? Right, let's do that first. Iodine, selenium. They compete for absorption in the gut. That is definitely true. But there's probably something more when we answer this question that makes a bit more sense when we're talking about antibodies. Right, so here's your functional unit. It's got colloid in it. You take some iodine and it gets converted to iodide, and that makes it enter the functional unit, okay? And then you have a couple of enzymes in there, TPO, thyroid peroxidase, and you also have thyroid globulin. And at the center of one of the enzymes there is selenium. See, so you need selenium to make thyroid hormone. Now, if you're not making enough thyroid hormone and you suddenly take iodine and you've got more iodide going into the functional unit, you're going to have more thyroid hormone. You're also going to have more of those TPO and TG enzymes in there. So yes, if you've got antibodies that are fighting those two things, they can go up, but it doesn't mean it's deleterious. Actually, it just means there's a bigger target, so it becomes the ratio. And I did this for somebody. We did some bloods and we used bar graphs to show what was going on with the TSH and the T3 and the T4, reverse T3, all the thyroid derivatives, for want of a better word. And we also looked at antibodies, and we looked at what we were doing with supplementation. And the key point is that everyone was getting better. That was the first thing. So we had somebody, their increase in antibodies went up, but their production, so let's say it went up 10%, just to make the sums easy, but the production of thyroid hormone that they wanted went up 20%, so the ratios improved ever such a lot. So just because your antibodies have gone up a little bit, why is that? Well, it could be because instead of having 1 day's worth of thyroid hormone, you've now got 50 days worth, which is how much can be stored. So if you imagine an antibody is attacking an area, and we're still healing, by the way, and we're still getting that autoimmune system, in remission, at some point, there's a tipping point where the antibodies will start to stop increasing and then start to decrease. And we see that time and time again. Absolutely, time and time again. So Rich and I are actually speaking the Easter weekend, the end of March. We're talking about different things. I am talking about bloods, and I will be talking about the thyroid panel and be talking about this sort of stuff. So that's it, Kemi. Hope that made sense. And this is again why I wanted to get into maybe doing like little PDFs of what we're talking about, so people can really get into this. Harry Sopanos, who we had on our channel a couple of weeks ago on the apple crumble one that we do at 8 o'clock after this, great guy. And you're absolutely right. It is a fine balance, but in the end, you need the raw material to make the thyroid hormone. So that's it. Right, let's get back to the next question, which is very interesting because it's vitaligus. I felt much better when I increased my few drops. I'm on and off, and strangely, but I feel different, more energy, and become much warmer. You see, now the thyroid is exactly that. It is like your control center for your temperature, and your metabolic rate. It has a lot to do with that. So if you take a couple of drops and you feel better and you feel a bit warmer, then that's worked, hasn't it? Right, here we go. Sorry to rush. Plum. How to leverage salt. This is one for Richard, right up his street. Electrolytes and water to gain water weight. How to leverage salt, electrolytes and water to gain water weight. It is difficult for me to retain water weight. It's an odd question. Any views on that, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, why would you want to retain too much water weight? The only thing that I can think is maybe a competitive bodybuilder or athlete. Water leverage can make us stronger also. So if you are a power lifter, leverage in the muscle is what allows us to lift more. It's more salt in regards to electrolytes, but I mean, it's what you're lacking there then is the ratio of the sodium to potassium and magnesium and calcium and so on and so forth. So, I would be careful in regards to messing around with ratios specifically. And I think the net gain probably isn't worth it. I think the energy that you were going to produce from quality electrolyte balance is going to far outweigh any extra water retention in regards to athletic performance or leverage. It's a tough one.
Yeah, and I think this is the disadvantage of the live Q&A. So if you have a question like that, a little bit more detail might help. I think then we can give you an answer straight off. Right, Eldon. If I'm doing intermittent fasting and want to stay in the autophagy stage, self-eating, that is, repairing for the people that are lay people, technically I can eat under 1.5 grams of leucine containing protein and not break the autophagy effects. Is this true? What do you reckon, Rich?
So I mean, the activation of mTOR begins around about 1.5. Optimal activation of mTOR in regards to muscle protein synthesis, muscle building, healing and repairing is around 3. So that would be the lowest end. The thing with mTOR and AMPK is that they are a seesaw, it's a balancing effect. We're always in both states, believe it or not. We just predominate one over the other. Just by being ketogenic, we constantly benefit from the state of being in autophagy to a degree. And by that, I mean, we benefit from autophagy, mitophagy, brown cell activation, and lipolysis just by being ketogenic, because that's what ketosis is, or even the carnivore diet. It is a fasting mimicking diet. This is why we don't really need to fast for prolonged periods of time if we are being ketogenic and carnivore. All of these things that we look at, the benefits of autophagy and reaching max autophagy, come from studies typically done on people who are not ketogenic and carnivore. So we're constantly in that benefited stage. But yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. The lower the amount of leucine, I'd probably go a little bit lower than 1.5, but you are going to benefit more from autophagy. But also remember that we need both. So at some point we do need to tip the scale. And you do want to activate mTOR in order to sufficiently heal and repair. So, I mean, if you are doing prolonged periods of fasting, but you want to consume a meal and benefit from autophagy and mitophagy, the lower end of leucine is going to allow you to do that.
Yeah, and I think just to educate our people watching, if you ever hear any word like glycolysis, lysis, it has lysis on the end. That's from Latin for cutting. So anything that has that in there, it's cutting it or ripping it apart, however you want to word it. We're always in a state of autophagy, actually. There's always turnover. The gut, for instance, the gut lining repairs completely and utterly over 4 days. Every single cell is replaced in 4 days. Right, Tom J. From what I've read, the casomorphins are only the result of the lack of enzymes that break down the proteins completely associated with leaky gut. Once you heal your gut, you should tolerate it well. And I think this is where the raw milk comes in as well, because that comes with a whole bunch of enzymes.
What I would say, I agree with that. And this is why I think that most of us can tolerate cheese on a carnivore diet. But I would, raw milk, we had Podrick on a couple of months ago, who was a big fan of raw milk. And I remember having a conversation with him and speaking about maybe potentially removing the raw milk, because I believe that it could be contributing to issues. And indeed it was. I think now he has it, once or twice a week, because it was causing problems. So cheese for me over raw milk. Yeah, sorry, Steve. God, I was just reading a question that I wanted to make sure that we cover before we switch off. So it's from Susan. Hi, Richard. Can carnivore ketogenic diets cause insulin resistance? Dave Asprey. Yeah, Dave Asprey. Posted a video recently stating that eat white rice and fruits 2 times a week. It's not insulin resistance. So think of the body becoming more efficient. We need less insulin to carry out the work. And Steve alluded to this a little while ago in regards to the Randall cycle. The cell protects itself. We need a lot less insulin to perform the work required. Therefore, our level of insulin comes down, but we get more bang for the buck. And it's the same with all of these things in regards to testosterone, human growth hormone. We see all of these things eventually sort of come down because they're becoming more efficient. We do not become insulin resistant when we are ketogenic and carnivore. And we know this because when we have seen testing in regards to someone who puts a little bit of carb in today, if they were to go for a glucose tolerance test tomorrow, then they would be super efficient on that test. It's a fallacy. It's just a means, I think, for people to... this is one of the reasons that I believe, some of our carnivore friends have started to produce videos in regards to consuming lots of compounds from the food kingdom. Dr. Chafee and I looked into, we did a presentation going back, a podcast, which was over 2 hours long, that was a rebuttal towards Dr. McCullough and Georgie Dinkoff's research that said long-term ketogenic low-carb lifestyles were detrimental. We ripped that apart incredibly quickly and incredibly easily, which shocked me because I've got a lot of respect for Dr. McCullough. But I do believe many of these people are swaying their views ever so slightly for monetary benefits. And the reason I say this is these big channels earn an awful lot of money for views, an awful lot of money. Stephen and I are not the case. So this isn't why we are doing this content. We don't earn... this doesn't pay a wage for us, I can assure you. But these people with lots of viewers, they earn an awful lot of money. And if they are saying the same story every day in regards to optimal health, go and eat a piece of meat, then they lose viewers and they lose subscribers. So changing things up and throwing something new into the mix increases that controversy and therefore fuels their income.
Rich, can I... Yeah, Rich, sorry, Billy the Kid there. What's the way a person with G6PD deficiency benefit from a carnivore diet? What's the way? Well, doing the carnivore diet. It has an effect on the red blood cells, and hemolytic anemia is something I talk about a lot. And the carnivore diet is absolutely brilliant for your red blood cells. And in fact, there is a reticulocyte count you can do in your bloods, and you can actually prove that your red blood cells are lasting longer. So that's something I'm going to say it one last time. If you look at my store for the books and all the stuff there, I've got a guide to blood tests in the context of keto and carnivore and low carb. So, right. Do we want to quickly talk about skool very, very quickly?
Yes, let's chuck that in, shall we? Obviously, we're moving over to the other platform now, but we, as you guys know, Stephen and I have a private group, which is free to join on currently a platform called Mighty Networks. We've decided to move from Mighty Networks to another platform called Skool. Steve, I don't know if you want to pop the link below. I think we're ready to start moving people over to the new platform, but over the next 3 to 4 weeks, we are going to transition and move the group over to that platform. It's an education platform where we can talk about things every day, foods we eat, hints and tips, and it's all free. There's lots of free content on there, and Stephen and I go live in a Zoom consultation format every Monday at 5 p.m. So tomorrow at 5 p.m. we will be live for 30 minutes for live Q&A in a Zoom format. You can remain hidden. You don't have to put your video on should you wish not to do so, and you can type questions in, but it's a fantastic platform for advice on all things health and well-being.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to find a quick link because I didn't know if we were going to talk about this. But anyway, there is a link there. You will be able to find it, and we'll, if not, just email us and we will send you a link. Oh, here we go. No, I've done it. All right, so that is the right link to use. So yeah, cool. Right, we are going to go off this platform. In the chat is our next platform. It rhymes with apple crumble.
Can you pop the apple crumble link below as well, please, Steve? Cami says she can't find it. It's in there.
Right.
Just pop it in again.
I've sent the wrong thing there, so ignore that. Let me just get it. I've put the StreamYard thing in, which is not the right thing to do. Let me just do it, and then we will see you on Apple Crumble. This is the problem with doing a live. And a new computer that doesn't work how I want it to work. So let's just put that in the comments. Here we go. So this is where you go if you want to see the next bit of the show. It's right down at the bottom there. And we got the Skool one near the bottom. And then under Cammy's comment is the Rumble one. And we will see you over on, oh, what's it, the word? Apple Crumble. We'll see you on Apple Crumble. Bye.